You seem like a calm, reasonable person.
That ain't how it works. You're a destroyer, like me.
I took a look back at my channel, and considering the fact that I call myself a huge God of War fan, I have realized that I have not done a single dedicated character analysis video on God of War. I just restricted it as segments in my reviews. So I thought it's about time I put my money where my mouth is. And to begin with, make at least one video. More might come later depending on how this video is received. So remember, people, to go crazy in the comments section and with the shares and whatnot. Now, the reason I did not make dedicated videos about God of War characters in terms of character analysis is because God of War is the best executed game story of all time. As a result, so many people have made so many videos about it. In fact, as of this writing, I have just seen another video drop about how Kratos is so misunderstood. I'll give you another example. James Sutherland and Angela Orozco from Silent Hill 2 are two phenomenally written characters.
That's what I thought. James, give me back that knife.
No, I won't.
As a result, people have been making character analysis videos about those two characters for years. So if I did something, I don't think I'm going to add anything new. Although that might change in a future video, by the way. However, I now feel that from time to time, in certain cases, I might have to put in my 2 cents. And if others have happened to discover what I have already, then so be it. Naturally, it's not always going to be the Raiden situation or the Claire Redfield situation where I happen to discover something that no one else has highlighted on YouTube. As a result, and following up from a technique I have used as my MC Tamman character in my previous video, I'm actually going to take two characters and compare certain traits in them and try to do a psychological analysis that way. What is going on, everyone? This is your boy, the Bengal Dragon. Make sure to hit that like, subscribe, and bell notification buttons, as all your support really helps this legally blind YouTube content creator to remain motivated to continue making a variety of different type of videos in this channel, and through the YouTube algorithm would really help this channel grow. Apologies for the delay in content, but I have been going through a lot lately. I just moved in a month or so ago into my new apartment. I just finished one job, started or extended my work with another job, making a lot of progress on my research, working on publications, the busy period of a doctoral candidate. All right. So, yeah, the content has been a little slow, but still, I have not forgotten about you. As the title suggests, this is a story of Thor and Kratos, two stages of a destroyer. Let us first begin with the ghost of Sparta himself, Kratos. So, as we know, Kratos is a Spartan who saw his younger brother get injured and kidnapped whilst training with him as a child, rose to the rank of the captain of the Spartan army at a relatively young age, had a wife, Lysandra, a child, Calliope, and due to his Spartan training, he was ruthless in his combat and military campaigns. His wife was the only one who told him to stop.
How much is enough, Kratos? When will it end?
when the glory of Sparta is known throughout the world?
The glory of Sparta. You did this for yourself.
But eventually, Kratos came across the barbarians to the east and was about to lose his life and the war itself in record time, apparently. But to Kratos, victory meant everything, and he made a deal with the god of war, Ares, that cost him his soul in exchange of victory. This was the birth of Kratos, the destroyer, the instrument of a god.
By the gods, what have I become?
Then, after ruthlessly killing for Ares, Kratos was tricked into killing his wife and daughter. Then, after that, the events of God of War Ascension happens, which eventually leads to his servitude to the gods of Olympus for 10 years.
10 years, Athena! I have faithfully served the gods for 10 years. When will you relieve me of these nightmares?
Then, during the events of Chains of Olympus, Kratos was given the task of saving Helios, for which he had to go into Hades and actually found Calliope in the fields of Elysium. Kratos later finds that this was all orchestrated by Persephone, and the only way to ensure that his daughter will remain alive in the fields of Elysium is actually by abandoning his daughter again and killing Persephone. He accepts that he will never be able to see Calliope again. And in doing so, in defeating Persephone, he bound Atlas to carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. By this point, Kratos knew that the Olympians only see him as an errand boy, a chore monkey, okay, in the hopes of Kratos eventually being granted what he wants, a release from his nightmares. Atlas summarizes this situation very well here.
Where are your gods now, Kratos? Why do they not come to your aid? I do not need the aid of the gods!
But my path is now clear to me.
I will serve them, and they will keep their promise to free me from my past! I ask you, Spartan, what good is the promise of an Olympian? It is all I have, Atlas!
A further testament to the great dialogue writing of the God of War writing staff. Then Kratos was tasked to kill Ares as a final task. And in the end, Kratos did not get what he wanted. He did not get a release from his nightmares. Hell, he was not even allowed to kill himself. Instead, he was made the new God of War, a title he did not want. And then Kratos was forced to kill his own mother, find his brother alive, and then fail to save his brother. In the process, Kratos brought ruin, chaos, and destruction. An example is sinking the city of Atlantis, which was a kingdom of Poseidon. This is why Zeus, disguised as a gravedigger, says,
By the gods, what have I become?
Death, the destroyer of worlds.
Then God of War 2 happened, which ended with Kratos finding out that Zeus was his father, where he ended up killing the Sisters of Fate and killing Athena and causing the Great War again, essentially the Titanomachy. Then God of War 3 happened, which ended with Kratos destroying a large part of the Greek pantheon, plunging the Greek world into chaos. Kratos finally realizes what he has done, the destruction he has wrought, the fact that a substitute daughter had to die because of his need for vengeance. he ended up trying to sacrifice himself to release the hope within him to the rest of the world. However, and I think this was actually in the comics, or at least one of those comics, part of the curse given to Kratos by the Oracle was that Kratos would not be allowed to end his own life and would not be allowed or able to discard of the blades of chaos. In fact, let us move to God of War 2018 Kratos to provide a very succinct summary.
Boy, listen close. I'm from a land called Sparta. I made a deal with a god that cost me my soul. I killed many who were deserving, and many who were not. I killed my father.
Now, let us move to Thor and the type of destroyer he is. I saw the video of a YouTuber called Fat Brett about Thor, and much of what he said is actually very correct about dealing with depression and alcoholism. The link to that video is in the description below. However, I think Brett missed a very key point. There are two lines that Thor says, which in context does not align that well with the depressed alcoholic trying to recover narrative.
What the fuck are you waiting for? Don't you know what I've done?
In context, this tells a slightly different story. And yes, the alcoholism and depression is related, but I think there's a slightly better explanation than just a depressed alcoholic trying to recover and trying to do right by family and whatnot. There's a slightly better explanation to this, which actually aligns those two data points as well into the explanation. As we know, Thor is the god of thunder in the Norse world. However, for this video not to get super long, I'm just going to play something from God of War 2018 and a clip from God of War Ragnarok, which basically summarizes Thor as a character through his actions.
Why do you hate Thor so much?
After my father passed, my mother built the statue to watch over his grave. Imagine our surprise when the god of thunder himself came to offer condolences. At first we were thrilled, but he quickly took advantage of our hospitality. My mother begged him to leave, and Thor, in his drunken rage, killed her. I was left with nothing but grief. Eventually I lost that as well, and found only rage in its place.
I'm so sorry.
Okay, there was Thamor, the stonemason.
Aye, he quarreled with his son, went into the night to find him, found Thor instead.
And there was Thamor's son, Hrimthur.
Who built the walls of Asgard, and whispered something of importance to Freya before his betrayal and assassination.
There was Groa, of course.
The knowledge keeper and prophet of Ragnarok. Thor murdered her husband, and Odin covered it up before doing her in himself.
What about the giants of Jotunheim? They all seemed dead when we finally made it there.
That remains a mystery. Though admittedly, it sounds like the Aesir god's dream.
What about Fjorgyn? Thor's mother was a giant, wasn't she?
Indeed she was. The circumstances of her demise were murky at best, but not sure I can blame Odin for that one. He wasn't the same after.
There was Starkadr the Mighty, the Jotnar military leader.
Slandered by Odin, tricked and murdered by Thor.
And there was Thrym the Cunning, the giant king who stole Thor's hammer.
Odin traded him Freyr to get it back, then sent Thor in disguise to murder his entire court.
Who else? Ah, Hrungnir the Brawler, the stone giant.
Aye, mocked by Odin, murdered by Thor.
So from here, we know that Thor is a destroyer, but a bit of backstory. Thor is actually a half giant himself, just like Loki, or as Kratos calls him, Atreus. However, he is mostly kept as Odin's instrument of destruction. He is married and had 3 children before Kratos killed 2 of them in self defense. So now he only has one daughter called Thrud. Thor trusts Odin's decision making even more than his own paternal instincts, to the point where Thor is not even allowed to avenge the death of his children until the end of the game.
What are you going on about?
I just don't get it. The mask. Bringing the giant that killed my sons here. Why?
I can explain it to you, but I can't understand it for you. Stop letting your wife think for you. She's clouding whatever's left of your brain.
This isn't about her.
No, it's about your limitations. Accept them and move on.
And this time, I'm allowed to kill you.
Thor is a reflection of Odin's base level logic that Thor perceives. Thor is very strict with his children, especially with Magni and Modi, because Odin acts in a similar way with Thor, expecting a lot out of their children. And if you've seen God of War 2018, you get this impression that Magni and Modi are always looking to one-up each other, trying to impress Thor. Remember, Odin kills Thor for failing him, and Thor beats Modi to near death for failing Thor and Odin. Thor blames Atreus and Kratos for his family problems, deflecting from the actual reason of his family problems being his own father. Because Odin does the same, who blames the giants, Tyr perhaps, Kratos, Atreus, everyone else for the destruction of Asgard.
You bring this to my home! To my family!
You turned them against me! You turned them all against me!
However, Thor does not see that Odin is actually manipulating everyone around him, even his own children and his own grandchildren, just because of Odin's desire for knowledge. This is why we actually see moments where Thor has to convince himself that what Odin is doing is right, trusting Odin's decision making more than Thor's own thinking, conscience, and even paternal instincts. Thor does not see that Odin in reality does not love his children more than himself, but Thor actually really loves his children. This is where Thor is stuck. He feels trapped, conflicted between what he perceives are his duties as a good father and his duties as a good son. Let me explain. Take a very close look at this dialogue, right? After the first mission with Thor, Atreus actually compliments Thor as being someone that Atreus learned from.
You both behave out there?
Thor was really great. I learned a lot from him.
You learned something from him? Really now? Okay. What did you teach the kid?
Nothing. What could I possibly teach him?
Exactly.
Hell, Atreus even listens to Thor, saying that he wasn't thinking.
Some advice. Sticking your hand in lava is never gonna feel good.
Wasn't thinking.
Good. It's better that way.
Whereas earlier, Thor says that sometimes it's good not to think.
No, but I was thinking.
Well, that's your problem.
Then, when Atreus tells Odin that he learned a lot from Thor, Odin is surprised. And then when Odin asks Thor about it, Thor goes back into a state of self-loathing, believing in himself that what could someone like him possibly teach anyone? He somewhat believes that he cannot teach anyone anything because that is how Odin perceives him. And Thor believes in Odin's perception more than his own beliefs and confidence about himself. However, you can see the immediate, keyword immediate effect on Thor of this interaction with Atreus. This is the same Thor who moments ago said,
Listen, Modi had some problems, but he was my son. And the only reason you aren't mush right now is because of that broken piece of wood.
And moments later, after Atreus showed some positive attitude towards Thor, after Atreus showed behavior that made Thor feel valued as a teacher, even at the slightest, and also suggested an activity that the warrior inside Thor would enjoy, Thor says,
You're an okay kid. You're still a giant, and I'll revel in killing you too.
this is Thor saying that he knows that Atreus is a good person, but Thor, he is still an instrument to Odin's will. And Odin will eventually ask Thor to kill another giant, and Thor will have to kill another giant. Regardless of his personal feelings, that revel in killing you too, that is Thor convincing himself, silencing his own conscience. Because if he thinks, his conscience will bother him. And that's one of the reasons he doesn't like to think.
You want to talk about blood payment? What about the giants you killed? They were my family. Thamur, Ronir, they were your people too.
The giants were blight on the 9 realms, and I revel in every single one of their deaths. Let it be known, the god of thunder is good for 2 things: killing giants and pissing me!
This is despite Thor's own mother being a giant. He knows he's wrong, but this is perhaps how Odin wants him to think. But it doesn't work. What happens after Atreus compliments Thor of being a good teacher and having learned a lot from him?
Did you think that I would be?
Well, it's a pretty good sword.
I'm not angry. I'm concerned. You know that's not what I want for her.
You don't want her to have a sword.
No, it's not about having a sword. It's about what you use it for. I think you know what I mean.
Yeah, I do. And I don't want that for her either, okay? You don't have to worry. She's a smart girl. Smarter than her father.
What do you think would happen? She hates me, Thor. My little girl. You can't keep undermining me like that. Training her behind my back?
She's gonna do what she wants. Wouldn't you rather I at least help? Know where she's going, keep her safe?
No, I'd rather us be a team. I'd like you to back me up for once. You're ruining what little relationship I have left with her.
I'm doing the best I can to keep this family together.
If that were true, you'd stand up to your father for once in your life.
You're right.
Honey.
No. You're right. What kind of example am I setting? Seems the only thing I can do right these days is destroy everything around me.
That's right. Atreus just planted the seed of Thor the teacher into Thor, and Thor goes and teaches Thrud the only thing Thor knows is how to fight. This is also storytelling through sequential event placement. My friends, God of War Ragnarok is not the greatest game story ever told for no reason. We must try to find the implicit story within the explicit story to find out and determine and understand what's really happening. Atreus planted the seed of Thor being good at something other than destroying everything around him. Another hint of this is in Niflheim when Atreus hints at Thor and Atreus not being very different after all.
Loki, you really keep trying to... I don't even know what you're trying to do anymore, but you have no idea the kind of shit I've been through.
Right. Half giant, son of a powerful god with impossibly high expectations. How could I ever know what that's like? You know, I'm not trying to do anything. I'm just pointing out we're not that different.
I got no interest in bonding over shared blood.
Okay, I just want to add one more thing. If you can't be yourself, you also might not feel like you can follow your own path. That doesn't sound familiar to you at all?
So we've got some similar life experience. What does it matter? Seems stupid to gripe about the things we can't change.
Who says we can't?
And Thor is right. The similarity between Thor and Atreus is very surface level. Thor has much more in common with Kratos because a huge part of who both of these people are that they are destroyers. But that surface level similarity was enough. Thor actually acts more friendly with Atreus at this mission and even says this.
You're enjoying the freedom? Out here without Fabio looking over your shoulder.
Well, yeah, I guess. It's different from what I'm used to. In a good way.
This is not only Thor trying to find common ground with Atreus, but also this is how Thor feels as well. He is frustrated by his father, and he's also trying to bond with Atreus, who on a parental level somehow feels that is responsible for the death of his children. This is because deep down, Thor actually knows that Odin is responsible for his children's death for a reason that Thor doesn't understand. Kratos and Atreus were just defending themselves. But the grieving father in Thor won't listen to reason, as that grieving father is still being suppressed. Here, we also see the difficulty of Thor the husband as well. Sif is trying to talk sense into Thor.
Can't you see what's happening? He's not protecting us. Magni, Modi, our boys. We used to tell them stories by the fire. Do you remember? We would carve those wooden horses. We would play and laugh until the sun sank and they fell asleep in our laps. They were thrown at the Allfather's problems like brittle knives to a mountain face. And for what? What if Thrud's next?
But Odin has conditioned Thor too hard to be a monster, a destroyer, an instrument to Odin's will. Additionally, you have to also understand where Sif is coming from. Just because she's an Aesir, it doesn't mean that Sif is not a grieving mother. In that influence, Sif is also trying to think for Thor, or at least showing Thor how to think. This will become important later. So, a teacher, husband, father, monster. Where have we seen this before?
Pretend to be everything you are not. Teacher, husband, father. But there is one unavoidable truth you will never escape. You cannot change. You will always be a monster.
That's right. People, it is okay to recycle a repackaged idea from a previous game, but it has to act as a building block to a greater story. And God of War Ragnarok is an excellent example of that. So, after Atreus finds the other part of the mask, Odin arrives, and then Sif arrives as well, asking for Atreus to be arrested because his father killed Heimdall. And look how manipulative and a liar Odin is. According to Sif, Odin said that no more Aesir blood will be spilled.
You said no more Aesir blood would be spilled.
And what did Odin tell Kratos in front of Thor?
Now, what you did to his boys. Self-defense. Dying is what we Aesir live for. And let's be honest, they were kinda useless.
And additionally, look at what Odin says about Balder.
But Balder, he had value. He was my best tracker, my closer.
That is disgusting. Not only does Odin make light of the death of his own grandchildren and calling his dead grandchildren useless in front of his son, in front of the father of his dead grandchildren, but his own son, Balder, Odin viewed him just as an instrument. Freya was devastated by his loss. Even Thor, it seemed that Thor took Balder's loss pretty hard.
That was for Balder.
But Odin, not once does he say Balder, his son was dead because of Kratos. All Odin says is his tracker, his closer. This is actually one of the most selfish and worst villains that I have seen. Okay, it is implied that Odin married Freya just to access Vanir magic. All Odin wanted for his entire life is knowledge and answers that only he wants. But Odin is a different topic for perhaps a different video. But back to this scene. Sif tries to talk reason to Thor, and the grieving parent in Sif and Thor comes out. For Sif, and even more for Thor, on the surface, he blames Kratos and Atreus for the death of his sons. And now he thinks that his daughter may also die because of them. Thor wants to be loyal to his father. That's why Thor blames Atreus for his father treating him like crap. And as mentioned, this is something Thor actually learned from Odin. Blame someone else for a problem they have nothing to do with. And that is why, when you see Sif convinces Thor not to listen to Odin for once. And what happens when Thor doesn't listen to Odin? The first thing he does, the first thing any grieving parent would do was try to avenge the death of their children regardless of logic.
Kill my sons. Sleep in their beds. Turn my father against me. My daughter.
I have no idea what's happening.
You know, I finally thought of something I can teach you.
Hey,
young.
stand down! Sentry better be right. Where you?
And then, when Thor even sees Kratos anywhere near his daughter, he drops it to protect his daughter.
Get away from her! I am done with you and your son!
Thinking that Kratos the Destroyer is there to kill his daughter. Because that's what Thor would do as a destroyer himself. He would just kill who he is asked to kill, even the innocent. And also notice, Thor keeps blaming Kratos and Atreus for his family problems, even for attacking his daughter, which Kratos didn't do.
Thor, the lad seems to think you've changed. Prove it and stop that! Talking's over! Fight and die! Thor, think to yourself for once! Your family's falling apart! You attack my daughter! No! I did not! You bring this to my home! To my family! If this is the end, you'll die first! Then you're king! Thor! This isn't what true... Keep her name out of your damn mouth! Everything was fine before Loki showed up! He almost convinced me! Had me believing things would change!
Thor even threatens killing Atreus after killing Kratos. However, in the end, when Thor is defeated, he says,
"What the fuck are you waiting for? Your daughter. My son calls her friend."
And as any protective father would do, even when they're trapped, they would try to protect their child.
If you try to hurt her, I would not.
Kratos then says that he won't, and also implies that since Thor is the father of someone that his son calls friend, Kratos wouldn't even kill Thor. And it is implied that at some level, Thor understands that. However, the line Thor says next is very telling.
Don't you know what I've done?
This is Thor basically screaming. He deserves to die. This is basically his conscience screaming at him that for all the death and destruction he has caused, he deserves death. This line, coupled with the fuck are you waiting for line, is what I was talking about. This tells you Thor's mental state. A part of him wanted to die. And a part of him wanted to die because his conscience told him that for all the destruction and all the undeserved death that he has caused, coupled with the fact that he believes he cannot change. Thor deserves death. From Kratos' perspective, Kratos was here before. Remember in God of War 3, Kratos kills Hephaestus and then says to Pandora,
Hephaestus did what every father should do. Protect his child.
Kratos also saw that a father, even as an imprisoned old man, would do anything that they can to protect their child. When he saw Daedalus, and who killed Daedalus' son Icarus?
You're not, but you, what have you done with my child? My boy, where is my boy?
Your son is dead, Daedalus.
Kratos. And in the end, Kratos says,
Pandora was sacrificed in vain. She died because of my need for vengeance.
Basically, his substitute daughter had to die because Kratos refused to let go of his vengeance. Kratos refused to change. Now, it's a topic for another video, the fact that Kratos was left with no choice but to hold on to his vengeance. But the fact remains that Kratos was here before. Hell, Kratos actually hints at this in the form of the story that Kratos told Atreus as a goodnight story.
There was an old man who chopped wood for his village. Every evening he bore the logs on his back and delivered them to his people. But the logs were heavy, and he grew weaker as time went. And one day, he threw down the logs as he could no longer bear their weight. And he called for death to come to him. And when death arrived, he asked why the old man had called for him. Seeing death before him caused the old man to reconsider his request. After a moment, he asked that death help him lift the logs onto his back so that he may continue on his journey.
He wasn't ready to die.
He wished to keep living.
The logs were the burden of his life and the prices he had to pay and others had to pay for his vengeance. And then he realized that he has another reason to live and a reason to change. And that reason was his son. But back to this scene with Thor. This is why Kratos replies with an emphatic
yes! But what will you do now?
We don't change. Destroy us!
Thor then implies that there's no point trying to change, as Thor believes that they cannot change, and they cannot change because they are destroyers. Kratos then basically in one line says that for the sake of their children, they must be better, and that is reason strong enough for changing and for being better and for thinking for themselves. This is why I said a part of Thor wanted to die and he wanted to be killed in battle. Perhaps he was looking forward to Kratos killing him after the fight of his life. But Kratos delivers something better, a reason to change and to live on. If a destroyer like Kratos can be better for his child, then so can Thor. And once Thor understands this, he actually starts thinking for himself. Once he was able to think for himself, once his paternal instinct of protecting his daughter was satisfied, once he was convinced that Kratos is not a threat to his daughter. Even Thor knows Magni and Modi died because Kratos and Atreus had to defend themselves. And Kratos and Atreus had to defend themselves because Magni and Modi were sent by Odin to surrender to them.
Surrender. The All-Father demands it. No.
And this is another thing Kratos and Thor have in common. Once their paternal instincts are triggered, they start thinking differently. So once the paternal instinct was satisfied, Thor starts to think for himself. Odin is the one who says that he should not think, he should not talk.
You don't talk! You don't think! I think, you kill! It's a simple fucking concept!
Sif was right about you. I just didn't want to see it.
This is Thor acknowledging what Sif has been telling him all this time, but Thor just ignoring it. Because implicitly, even Thor saw it too, but Thor trusted in Odin's greater plan that Thor thought he doesn't understand. And he thinks that lack of understanding is his own shortcoming and not Odin's manipulation. But when Thor saw Odin's manipulation, Thor started to think for himself, which happens to coincide what Sif, Mimir, Atreus, everyone has been telling him. And for once, he refuses to be an instrument to his father's will and refuses to kill Kratos. And what does Odin do when he loses control of Thor as an instrument?
Take the hammer and kill who I tell you to kill!
No.
That's right. Odin now saw him as a non-functioning instrument, and people discard of non-functioning instruments. And Odin, after killing Thor in front of Thrud, and after trying to deflect the blame to Kratos and Atreus, later says that he saved Thrud and Thor's death is on Kratos and Atreus?
Dude, this was all their fault. They've done this to us, to our family. Looks like I gotta do everything around here.
You wrote, son! You granddaughter! Why?
Rude's gonna be mine. I saved her. Thor! That one's on you.
But getting back to Thor, people, in real life, this is one of the most destructive things a person can do to another. Make them believe that their thinking is wrong just for manipulative gains, just for selfish reasons, not for legitimate reasons. Okay? Because if you do this in a prolonged manner, and believe me, people, I am very certain you have seen these type of people around you. That no, it's not like, elder person trying to tell a child or explain to a child why that child's thinking is wrong. Okay, because of logical reasons. No, this goes towards trying to preserve the first person's own selfish needs. Okay, what happens when the other person starts to constantly believe that whatever they're thinking is wrong? It starts to affect their own judgment and they start suppressing their conscience. And we saw this in Thor. Thor started to suppress his conscience. Also, notice when Thor says,
I hope everything goes okay when you see Sif and Thrud again.
Well, hoping's better than thinking.
And remember what Pandora said about hope?
Hope is what makes us strong. It is why we are here. It is what we fight with when all else is lost.
This is also Thor perhaps believing that all else is lost because there's no point trying to change what he thinks cannot change. And this is why I titled this video, Two Stages of a Destroyer. Thor is a reflection of who Kratos used to be. At some level, Thor understands that Kratos also understands what it feels like to be a destroyer and how difficult it is, especially when it comes to your conscience.
You think you can come here, become a daddy, get a clean slate? That ain't how it works. You're a destroyer, like me.
So those are my thoughts on the Thor-Kratos dynamic in God of War Ragnarok, which I will maintain is perhaps the greatest game story ever told. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. And as always, hit that like, subscribe, bell notification buttons, and share. As trust me, all that support really helps this legally blind YouTuber remain driven to continue making such YouTube videos. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you all had a wonderful 2024 and Christmas and holiday season. I will see you all in 2025. This is the Bengal Dragon signing out.